in case Courtney didn't. And so today we're going to be talking about the fourth boundless abode. It is actually one of my favorites. This is probably the one for me, the boundless abode of equanimity. And the way that Pema wrote about it is thinking bigger, I think she wrote. Wasn't that the chapter had something close? Wasn't it like thinking bigger? Somebody have the book. It's fairly close. I have my book here somewhere. I can click onto it. And really, just as Courtney and I were talking, it isn't about really thinking at all. It's actually, though, correctly said that we're going to be bigger because we're not going to be caught in our own sense of pleasure or pain. We're not going to, based on what we like or what we don't like, right? This isn't going to be factored. It isn't going to be our preference. It isn't going to be based on our bias. It isn't even going to be based on what we're capable of or what we think we're capable of, right? Not going to be. It's going to be, where can I be most present? And that take, it is thinking bigger. Thank you. Thinking bigger. I wouldn't have used the word. I wouldn't have used the word thinking. However, I do know what Pema means here. She says thinking bigger, because if you can't cognize it, you can't be it, right? There's some connections here. So when she says thinking, she means place the mind upon. That's what she means by thinking. Place the mind upon a condition, a perspective, a view. The Buddha said a view that's actually larger than one's preference. So do you know what I mean by that? Larger than one's preference? Yeah, this is not necessarily going to be pleasant. It doesn't make it easy. It does, however, make it right action. It does equal right effort. It's sort of like, oh, but it's, so yeah. And then I must, whatever that is. Often, I don't think we get signals quite that clear. I think we get little moments of vibration or energy or felt sense. Sometimes we call that intuition, maybe even something else, right? That just sort of says, no, this, okay. And we don't necessarily like it, but there is really a quality in equanimity, I have to say. I noticed this for myself. I wonder about you all, where there is I often say in a moment of equanimity, and it is this way, and it is this way. This is the truth of it. I don't have to like it. It doesn't have to be my favorite action. It means I need to step back when I'm used to charging in. It means I have to let it go when I'd rather fix it, right? It is not based in any way then on our habit nature. Pema calls these thoughts, words, and deeds then, or the actions, fresh. Doesn't she? She uses that word fresh. It comes right out of the present moment. It doesn't have, well, but this is what I'd rather, this is what I like, or this is what they would really enjoy. It isn't even based on that. It isn't even based on another's preference. And what she wrote about that we'll look at in a moment is with compassion for ourselves in our struggle, for another in their struggle, for the truth of suffering, we begin a path to the end of suffering. Right there, just saying this is a moment of suffering. Could somebody write in chat for me the number one practice this week will be acknowledging and saying to oneself, this is a moment of suffering. This is a moment of suffering. Because that's the thinking that Pam is talking about. She's talking about acknowledging the reality. This is a moment of suffering. And last week, what we realized is that in the Mahayana tradition, on the Bodhisattva path, in the heart of bodhicitta, everything is a condition that can contribute to the end of suffering. Every moment is ripe, perfectly ripe with the end of suffering. It's right there, like right there, it's there. So when, oh, but not till next week. Nope. Well, it's gonna be a long time. Nope. Where's the end of suffering? This very moment. We often listen to yourself go, it's a tough day today. I hope it gets better tomorrow. There's no better tomorrow. Where's the better? Right now, how do we begin? The teachings say. We don't begin by going, get over it. That's not the path. We don't begin by trying to see the sunny side. That's not the path. We don't begin by going, okay, I'll just victimize myself or martyr myself and that'll make it better. No, this isn't useful either. It begins always with recognition. And the recognition that we're going to be practicing this week is this is a moment of suffering. Who's suffering? Whose suffering are we talking about?
Your own and everybody else's.
Your own and everybody else's. Why? If the other is suffering, you can't be okay. And if you're not okay, nobody else can be okay, right? That's the interconnected, interdependent reality. If someone is suffering, Courtney, you know this, don't you? Because when your uncle wasn't okay in the hospital, there was no way for you to be okay, was there? That's not a possibility. Not in genuine connection. Now, by the way, this doesn't have to be our loved ones, does it? No, it doesn't. I see someone cold out on the street. I don't feel good. I don't feel good. I don't know them. And I do. And yes, I do, right? They are my brother. They are my sister also, right? And so today, this week, the practice begins. Now we're going to now move into we're going to train for how not to turn away, how not to distract, how not to shut down, how not to go cold, how not to get angry, right? How not to judge, blame, because they're not useful. They are the propagators of suffering, right? So it says, oops, your reactivity is not useful here. It is not going to be useful here. We're going to have to get bigger. And then the get bigger begins with recognition. This is a moment of suffering. And then what's the second part? It's always the same. Feeling for oneself and the other in this moment of difficulty. Isn't it? Remembering our humanness, our vulnerability, our tenderness. Is that right? What else would you do? What else would be possible that you could imagine? Anybody have another idea? Because I can't think of anything. And I really mean that. I can't think of a thing. Now, what we often do, and I want everybody to hesitate, so somebody write that in chat for me, we have to pause once we recognize the truth of suffering. Why do we have to pause? Because Libby just said we go into habit or reaction. Left to that autopilot in us, in the face of a moment of suffering, even when named, even when pronounced out loud, as I do, this is a moment of suffering, my habit mind is right there, ready to reject, or to fix it. Those are my two habits. Like, no, not going to deal with it. That's your fault. You did it. You deserve it. If you suffered, that's too bad for you. That's not mostly my habit. My habit mostly is to go, let me figure out how to fix this for you. No, this is not best. The pause is necessary. So the second is to recognize, and then in RAIN, for example, they say accept. We're going to change that a little bit for right now. We're going to pause. And we're just going to take those few breaths of Tonglen. We're going to remember, right, that the thing I can do right now in the face of suffering, my own or another's, is be willing to open to it. And we're just going to pause and breathe. Okay. And then we'll move into acknowledging our humanity and their humanity all together. Let's practice that now. Is there anything anybody wants to say about this before we practice? Ready to go? Okay. So let's prepare to sit. I'm going to take one last sip. Just finding that supported posture, make it wakeful, upright, dignified, and remember our inner nobility. Born of this precious human life with this capacity to get bigger. And thus we train. We can lower the head just a little, release any tensions from the neck, the shoulders. Inviting stillness. And then we ignite the heart of bodhicitta. And to do so, we're going to call those loved ones to mind, like Uncle Arthur, like Fatma's daughter, those we know who are vulnerable. And you will feel, in just calling that to mind, this is the beginning of acknowledging this human life. We acknowledge that what comes with it is vulnerability. And then right here is the heart of bodhicitta. And we breathe that in. We feel our own and others' shaky tenderness. And we feel the effects of that bodhi heart, little trembly, little achy, little tight, and even expanding. It hurts being human, as well as being filled. We worked on it for 2 weeks, filled with that appreciative joy, that gratitude for the opportunity for love, for compassion. We don't seek security or comfort. We recognize its impermanence. We actually turn towards the blade. We open the heart, knowing that, that what we will confront is the truth of suffering. And by that itself, we begin the path to examine. Let's just breathe that for a few moments. Stay focused on that heart-centered breath rather than distract, go in some other direction. Think about lunch. We're going to keep breathing into that body. This is training by itself rather than the reactivity of fighting, flighting, fixing, freezing, rather than our typical addictions. We just breathe it in and soften the truth of this human life. You'll begin to feel the sense of the belly, the body, soften as we abide. There's nowhere to turn, there's nowhere else to go. This is it. And in the practice of equanimity, we can begin that limitless practice right here with our own breath. We want to breathe in, feeling the sense of the length, the texture, the quality of the breath. And you want to breathe out in a similar way. You don't want to shorten the breath on one side and make it long on the other. You want to equalize the breath in this practice of equanimity. And then we not only equalize the breath, we equalize the attention to the breath. We stay both on the in-breath, breathing in the truth of our vulnerability, of our humanness, the truth of suffering. Feel the effects. And then we breathe out and soften around it. We're not tensing, tightening, or moving. We're staying. Remember that instruction. We're not getting rid of in the out-breath here. We're softening and opening more. Can you feel that? It might even make the itch, the pain, the tension, the tightness. You might even make contact a little bit more, and this is good. We are all capable of abiding in the truth of suffering. Be watchful of the mind that's in problem solving or in judgment, in self loathing. These are old storylines. They're all used for the same purpose, they're just distraction. And in the recognition, remember, we're once again present and free. We just breathe back in, opening the portal of our own human hearts. This willingness to stay without distraction, without judgment. Is the beginning of our equanimity practice. Pleasure or pain, we stay. When we look good and when we look bad, we stay. And as you're breathing into the heart space, feeling that tenderness, feeling that vulnerability, acknowledging the truth of suffering just in life in general. Stabilizing the mind by grounding the attention itself into the breath in the heart space. And we can invite an inquiry here as we're breathing. What is this suffering this moment. And we're just opening wider for understanding, for connection. What is this suffering? This moment, I'm feeling a kind of pressure in the upper heart space and the lungs. I'm just letting it be, breathing. And I'll just use myself. I'm sensing probably the pain of missing my father here. And rather than try to feel some other way, rather than push it down or get rid of it, I'm just going to simply let it be and breathe. And can I let the pain be pain without turning away, without shutting down? Without causing suffering, the pain of loss, the pain of illness. The pain of impermanence, of change. Can I simply breathe with? Can I be present to my own distress without the storyline? And the storyline usually comes with a rewritten version of how we think things should have gone. Shouldn't have been like that. It should be like this. Why is it that way, not this way? Our prejudice, our bias, our preference, our judgments all step in. And in their recognition, once again, can we drop beneath the words, just resting in the heart space with whatever's there? And just missing my father. Can I just let that be? Being afraid of an illness, can I just let that be? Being confused about the right action, can I let it be? Not knowing how to address an issue with a relative or loved one, can I let it be? And as you're in presence, as you're in opening allowing, accepting whatever is happening. Feel the effects. This is the beginning of the end of suffering. This is a moment of vulnerability, of humanness, the expression of the tender heart. And I make contact with the breath, with the attention, and even with one's hand, we can take our palms, placing them gently around the heart space, the heart or belly space. Just feel where it feels supportive for you. Can we hold ourselves in this humanness? You are deserving of this love and compassion. Breathe it in, offer it to yourself. May I be free from this distress. And for me, may I have the courage to open to the truth of this pain. There's nothing to do about this. And I have the courage to be with the pain of loss. And what might you invite for yourself? For some, it might be, may I reduce the resistance I have to this truth? May I soften and become more open-hearted in a reality I do not prefer? And then we can offer ourselves whatever is needed here. For me, just the willingness to stay. Opening to the moment of pain, loss, confusion. And I acknowledge the wanting something else. And we're not wanting what is here, the cause of suffering. And we're not trying to get rid of anything at all. This is just a seeing clearly and allowing the truth. This requires courage and honesty. I'd rather my dad be here. can we offer compassion to ourselves for this pain and suffering? And that really means feeling for yourself. Offering phrases, maybe an image, and for sure contact with hands, gentle touch. And we can get bigger still. We can then acknowledge, just like me, just like this pain, others feel this too. This missing someone, longing for that physical connection, that presence. Without judgment, without condemnation, without having to change anything at all. And I feel for myself and others just like me who know this too. And what happens for me when I recite that is immediately comes to mind friends, others, family members who know this pain too. And can I breathe that? And in this moment of unity, no separation, we feel for the whole world. The whole world who knows loss, who knows pain, confusion, anger, shut down. The humanness of us all for wanting permanence, for wanting what we need. And then where is the suffering now? With this acceptance, with this allowing, with this contact, with this staying close. With this compassionate presence, where is the suffering now? And we can then begin again. This is a moment of difficulty, challenge, suffering, and confusion, vulnerability. We can begin again. Compassion does not require a fix. It does not require an action. It is actionable by its presence. It's already happening. Your very compassion will live out just like love in infinite ways. Begin with acknowledging and recognition. May we all be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May we all see the path to the end of suffering and open our hearts in love and compassion. And may we have the courage, the strength, the willingness to attend to our own aching, tender hearts. May we all see clearly the path to the end of suffering. And may we be fearless in its pursuit. Recognize, pause, and open. And then I'd like you to picture that heart, the one that stayed, the one that opened, the one that's bigger. It is right here in you. I'd like you to fill that heart with radiant light. It is already radiant with love and compassion. And as you breathe in, make contact with that radiance. That's the radiance of bodhicitta. And on the out breath, we're going to send it out in all directions, offering that light to all those it touches, the trees, the dog, the plants. May we all be well and have ease. May we all be free from pain and suffering, sending out these blessings. We use the openness of our own hearts as the medicine. May you know you are loved. May you remember that you are never alone. Whatever compassion has been generated, whatever love is present, we make that offering. We offer offer to ourselves and to others. O loving and compassionate heart, the heart of bodhicitta, may you arise where you have not yet come to be. And where you have arisen, may you grow and flourish evermore and more, never to be diminished. Undone. And may this practice today, may it contribute. Breathe it in one last time. Send it. So be it. And so, what did you notice happened? I got tears in my eyes. It's okay. I felt the pain of missing my father. That's okay. Isn't that good news? And can you see, could you feel the difference between just the pain of our humanness and the suffering? Anybody catch where it was? In the resistance, in the fight, in the gotta feel something else, gotta be some other way. The circumstance has to change. The situation's got to be different. I've got to be different, or they've got to be some other way. That's where the suffering is. It's always true. It's always true. But the minute you can open, this is that getting bigger. You get bigger right away. Just go, okay, it's here, just like this. This pain, this grief, this loss, this truth, whatever it is. Right? And rather than run, hide, separate, distract, get busy, do something else, we breathe. And we stay. There was interest. Let's talk about that. Actually, the ease is in holding the truth of the pain, isn't it? You're going to miss your uncle. You miss him now. You love him now. You want him to be okay now. Isn't this all beautiful? What would we need to change about this? It would be crazy, wouldn't it? What would you have to be not to feel that? It's terrifying, right? Right. It's terrifying what we do, how we imagine that Teflon coating that we believe we need, that does not serve us. It is better to cry, isn't it? It's better just to be sad and let the sadness be. But it takes a lot of bravery. Why do you suppose? What do you suppose our objection is? I mean, really, what is it? What's the objection? Feeling it. Feeling it. Because then it's painful, right? That's the bottom line. It's painful. We don't want that. The brainstem goes, no, I'd rather think about the bird out there. I'd rather think about the good news. And by the way, we want that. That's important. We did that, didn't we? The good news is the very heart that felt it. That's actually good news. The very heart, right? That one. Now, the suffering, they say, is optional. You don't have to do that. You don't have to fight with it. You don't have to resist it. You don't have to try not to. You just get to say hurts like this, vulnerable like this, human like this, missing like this, familiar. Yes, it is. It's the truth of this human life. It's the true path. It's not the only part of the path, though. See, there's not only pain. It's not true. That's half the story. What's the other half? Did you experience it? There was the being with, breathing with, staying with. That very, oh, it's okay. It doesn't feel good, but it's all right. I'm here. And there's even a relief in it. Like I don't even have to try not to cry. Do I? Would you want that for me? Really? Would you want me not to miss my father today? And to go, yeah, you know, no, you wouldn't, because that would be the disavowing of love, wouldn't it? I'd have to get rid of that. It says the yin and yang of life, entering the dark and discovering the light. Yes, right in it. Right in the truth of pain is compassionate presence. It resides there, not around it, though. We can't get around it. Like, is there some faster, easier, better way? No, there's no pill. We do have to be open to the truth of real pain in this life. Yeah. And impermanence is a big piece of that reality. So Renee said, Siobhan says, I started with compassion for the part of me that gets armored and defensive. Couldn't you feel it as a first step? Yeah, it's like hitting a brick, holding my own suffering first. Yes, it's usual that you have to do that first, Siobhan, before I could move forward. That's right. When that softened, I could then pause and not step into react. That's exactly right. With my own vulnerability from their right action. That's exactly correct. I don't know how to do it without touching my own pain, not without the willingness to let my own heart break. How do you do it? How do you armor up and go in to feel anything? How do you do it? What heart are you using then? If yours isn't available because it's back there behind the Teflon, myself, which is why we say self-compassion ultimately is required for compassion for others. Because what are you drawing on if it's not the truth of your own pain? That's how you know to feel or be with another. You go, I know what that is because I know it too in my way, right? We don't try to equalize that. That's not necessary. Renee says, staying with the pain gets easier with breathing and remembering everything I can feel grateful for and is present. That's right. Just the very capacity to feel that is something to be grateful for, that I can know this pain and its resolution. And I don't mean we get unpained, but the being with actually does something, doesn't it? It opens the heart. That's what this chapter is saying. We'll go look at it in a moment. It is painful, but gets doable. Yes, exactly right. Each time I try to just stay, new experience. Yeah, we're not trained for staying. We're trained for leaving. We're trained for busy, aren't we? So busy, 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 busy. Who's got time? We've got 3 days on a good day in a right corporation to grieve. We got 3 days for that, to figure it out, get over it so you can get productive. And we actually know that it's crazy and destructive. We all know, like, really? I'm going to work what out? By the way, most of my family never took a grief day ever on any day. Not one. My brother went to work. That same job, by the way, just a couple of weeks ago, walked him out the door. Right out the door. That same job, he thought, oh, instead of feeling for myself and others, I'll just go to work, right? After 20 something years. Now, by the way, he still got his job back, but that's not the point. The point is, right? Be careful where and what you invest in, what you think is going to hold you up. It is not a job, but on a spiritual solution. This is the solution. I want to look at the Kindle. So go to chapter 12, I think it is, if you guys have it. This is the end of chapter 11. And I just want to remind you what we're going to be working on. And giving, when we're pulled back from giving, like, I don't want to, for me, it was I needed to give, and allowing difference, or it wasn't a thing, it was opening where I might otherwise have closed down. And I practiced that, I would say, very successfully this last week, and just kept saying, okay, so here we are. Can I breathe in? This resentment, for example, out some kind of relief for myself, as Siobhan said, and then others. This simple way of training, Pema says, with pleasure and pain, allows us to use whatever arises in the moment that we can make contact with. By the way, they're both arising every moment. The reality of suffering is here every moment, and the reality of the path to its end is right here in that very same moment. So it isn't like this tough moment. Nope, not true. It means that's what you saw. That's what you saw, and that's okay, because seeing the truth of suffering is a part of the path. But right there, the very willingness to see it, the very willingness to make contact, the very willingness not to turn away, shut down, get busy, go the other way, eat something else, whatever that is the beginning of the path to its end. The very abiding is the beginning of the path. So be watchful of what you think you have to do to make that relevant. And so here's the thinking bigger. We're going to just keep saying getting bigger, right? Though the mind trainings are what Pema is referencing here. Train without bias in all areas. That means pleasure or pain. That's what all areas means. Either way, we're going to work with it. Either way, we're going to train. It is crucial always to do this pervasively and wholeheartedly. That means you have to show up for it. You have to be present. You can't half-ass it by going, well, there it was. I said the words. That's really good. It's not sufficient. You have to feel it, which is why I keep drawing into the heart space, into the body, into the breath. It's not a thought. It's something larger. In opening up as wholeheartedly as we can to ourselves, remember we said at the beginning, to our friends and then even people we don't like, this is the path. This is where the training is. We are cultivating the unbiased state of equanimity. What does that mean? No preference for pleasant or unpleasant. No preference. We go, hey, good fodder for the mill. I can use this too. What can I do? Well, if it's unpleasant, I can feel for myself and all those others. I can breathe it in, transmute it, and send out the good medicine of what? Me showing up for it. Me showing up for it. Period. That's it. You didn't do it. I'm showing up. I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to stay present. I'm going to breathe it in willingly, transmuting it by that very willingness. And then guess where I am? I'm still here. I stayed. I didn't run. I didn't shut down. I didn't platitude it over. I just said, yeah, this is hard. This is hard and I'm here. That's it. She gave a little example of I'm okay no matter what the circumstance. It's always true. Its potential is right there. It says in the last paragraph here of inviting everything and everyone without exception. We use that slogan, grateful for everything, grateful for everyone, as a part of that equanimity slogan. We can practice that this week, grateful for everything. Could you stop in a moment, pause and say grateful for this? What is it? Grief. Grateful for this. What is it? Pain in my right knee. Can I be grateful for everything? And the gratitude means I understand it as a part of our humanness and that I have the capacity now to respond to that right knee, for example. It doesn't mean we like the pain. And can I be grateful for it? Because then I can attend skillfully, wholeheartedly, lovingly. Training in equanimity is learning to open the door to all, welcoming all beings, inviting life to come visit. Before we get to all beings, however, I think it's a good idea to just practice opening to your own experience. I think so. Rather than now I've got to open to my neighbor who's kind of a knucklehead. Now I've got to open to, I don't think so. I think really the work is still where Siobhan said, which is opening to this quality in me, opening to this not wanting in me, opening to this fear, not feeling like it right now anyway in me. I think that's where the work really is. And then, just like me, with this here, this feeling deficient, this feeling incapable, this feeling unworthy, can I open them to others just like me who feel this too? And I happen to know that is the preferred path, because you're really making contact with it in that way. We hope to get what we want and fear losing what we have or don't want. This describes our habitual predicament. Equanimity is bigger than that, isn't it? It's bigger than wanting the pleasant and rejecting the unpleasant. And that is not to be denied. That is the nature of the brainstem mind. We just have to go, of course, I want chocolate because I like it better than vanilla. That's not the problem. The problem is what? Demanding or believing that life owes me that. or that the partner owes me that because I like it better, or that going, it shouldn't be this way because what? Well, my preference should dictate. Well, that's the path to certain suffering. It is not going to work. We mentioned them in the meditation: pleasure and pain, praise and blame, gain and loss, fame and disgrace. And it says in this human life, we are constantly twirling around those winds, and they are working through us, in us, and around us. And the recognition itself, and sometimes helpful to name that. This is a moment of pain. I don't want this. I'm not liking this. I want it to go away. This is a moment of loss. I don't want it. I'm believing if only I could have somethinged, or they could have somethinged, I could have gotten out of this moment. No lasting happiness comes from being caught in the cycle of attraction and aversion, right? We stay locked up. It's called the cycle of samsara, spinning round and round between wanting and not wanting, wanting and not wanting. And that the recognition of that by itself would invite compassion. It would by itself invite compassion. To cultivate equanimity, we practice catching ourselves when we feel that attraction and aversion before it hardens or becomes a prejudice, becomes a bias, becomes something we just demand of ourselves, of life, or of another. We try to loosen it up with that compassionate presence spot. That's what we're making contact with today. And use our bias as stepping stones for connecting with the confusion, the resistance, the not wanting, both in ourselves, right? And then another. Most of us likely made contact with that resistance, right? The pain was actually more resistance than it was the pain for me. I really just didn't want to feel that. When I finally just went, it is that, when I named it, right? I said, oh, I think this might be the pain of the missing my father. When I just rested in that, I could feel almost an immediate relief. It was actually very striking for me. Then I was like, oh, that wasn't the pain. That was the suffering. That was the heavy shield of trying to get around tears, crying, sadness, missing my dad. No problem. No problem there. All the not that. That's just how bad it feels. It can be used to suffer the same kind of aggression. And the aggression is not feeling it. That's an aggressive act. Not allowing my real experience. Just to say, I miss my dad, who just like us get hooked by hope and fear. Those are our two most destructive patterns, by the way, hope and fear. Hope for something else, fear that we can't keep what we like, what we want, what makes us feel good. Hope and fear. Hope for something else, another moment, just as most of us do. Well, this was an example she gave of a person who got mad at people being late and then was late herself and couldn't recognize, just never actually could see that this is actually something I do. We talked about this on Saturday a little bit. I want to go back to it because someone said, I just don't have forgiveness right now for this person. And I said, wait a minute, you don't need forgiveness for that person. You need forgiveness for yourself, for your own hardening, for your own aggression, for your own judgment, and the consequence to who? You. not to the other who's happily golfing somewhere, doing what, for you, that you're taking the poison pill there. Now, the pain of that is whatever it is, isn't it? The pain of being betrayed, the pain of abandonment, the pain of deception, the pain of somebody exploiting us, right? These are real things. They happen in real life. Of course, we all understand that. Is anybody's job to just immediately forgive that? No, it's to recognize how we harden in the face of it. And the consequence to us, by the way, how we harden and the consequence to us. This is key. This is a deep wisdom. It's easy to continue, even after years of practice, to harden, now there's the word, into a position of anger, righteousness, personal favorite, and indignation. Like this just should not be happening. Well, but it is happening. So now how do I open to that? But it is happening. That other's confusion, their fear, their anger, their regret, their, right? How do I open to that, remembering that I too, in this human life, feel like this, and shut down right now, right in the midst of it. Here's the page I thought had just infinite wisdom on it, and then we'll stop. We can contact the vulnerability and rawness of resentment or rage or whatever it is. A bigger perspective can emerge right from our own hardened hearts. Right from our own hardened heart, we can open first by just acknowledging that I feel nothing. And that's what the person was doing, saying, I'm not in forgiveness right now. This is a beautiful beginning, isn't it? I can feel it like a rock, like deadened, numb, right? Empty. There's all kinds of ways. And can we stay with ourselves and begin by feeling for ourselves? Making contact with the energy, Pema says, of that experience. That's what we did today, isn't it? That that's there. As Chogyam said, queasy tenderness. That's what that really is. No matter how hard it feels, there's a bigger truth, and that it's protecting that tenderness. And instead of acting out, instead of getting angry, instead of shutting down, we train in stillness. We train in equanimity. We breathe in and we breathe out and get bigger by the very act of doing so. Pause and breathe. You're getting bigger already. You don't have to force anything. We move from being limited, Pema says, to being limitless right on the spot. Right on the spot. Isn't that amazing? Right on the spot. We are already an infinite contribution. I don't even know how to tell you, because we don't talk about this much, but the karmic seeds that are sown right there. The positive merits right there that you went, I'm just not going to shut down. I don't know what I'm going to do, and maybe nothing, but I'm at least going to just acknowledge the truth of suffering this moment. And then I'm going to pause and I'm going to breathe it in. Through softening, the barriers come down. We can take the practice even further by using what comes up as the basis for this empathy and understanding. We just talked about that. Closed feelings like fear or revulsion thus become an opportunity rather than a problem, right? Can we use the pain, the confusion, the anger, the resentment, the righteousness, as an opportunity? Yes, that is the path of awakening. Right there. Can I recognize and pause? This is a moment of suffering. And then we become friendly with that experience, whatever that is. Either way, we are stretching our hearts wider, bigger, deeper. When we rest in a feeling of spaciousness and ease, that's also a part of our practice, isn't it? That's how we begin. We will rest in equanimity without getting so caught. Hooked is a word Pema uses a lot. In lost in our preferences. Lost in our preferences. I practice that spaciousness every day because I know how easy it is for the mind to get trapped in it should be, I don't want it, right? And in the doing of the day, it's very easy to get lost in that kind of thinking mind. Here is the phrase for equanimity. You will have heard me say it often. May all beings dwell, I say rest and dwell, in the great equanimity, free from greed, hatred, and delusion. May we all dwell and rest in the great open embrace, those big arms of love and compassion, free from greed, hatred, and delusion. Simply reflect on how much pain is caused by grasping and aversion, that wanting and not wanting, how much pain there is in our fear of losing whatever it is we want, how much pain there is in feeling that certain people are worthy or not worthy of compassion or love. With a boundless mind, one could cherish all living beings, radiating friendliness over the entire world, above, below, and all around, without limit. This is written in the sutta. I would like to recommend that you write this and repeat it. With a boundless mind, you could say heart and mind, one could cherish all living beings, radiating friendliness over the entire world, above, below, and all around, without limit. I think I will let that be. Those are the words as recited by the Buddha and passed down through the lineage. 2,600 years. 2,600 years. That phrase made it down by being recited over and over again. That's a lot to rest in, folks, isn't it? That's a lot to rest in. It is not just yours. It is not just mine. That has been recited throughout time. Okay, thank you for helping me. I'm just going to take a few moments here and see what people are experiencing with this. Where do you think your practice is this week? Greg says, it seems that so much of this chapter is about listening to ourselves for sure, and our predicament, our armor, pain, not wanting, opening to that, being witness, very much so, Greg. That's the base of this practice. It is not in feeling first for others, because how could you feel for another if you did not feel it, know it, abide in it yourself? Well, first of all, you just wouldn't tolerate it, would you? Period, the end. You just wouldn't. If you can't make contact with your own aggression, how in the world are you going to stay in contact with another's? You're not. You're going to go, you just shouldn't, that's it, and you're bad. These are our habits, right? And so that's exactly right. Listening at the minimum, and maybe feeling for. That's the getting bigger. We're in chapter 12, Renee. We just did that chapter called Thinking Bigger. We're changing that a little to Getting Bigger. We're going to move now into chapter 13 with the quote being from my teacher, Joko Beck, as she was quoted in chapter 13. Now that's the one we'll be doing in the next week. But I want to review the practices. So I hope I was asking you to write it down. I'm going to start from where I just ended and go back, because I will go up in the chat. But I want you to write that phrase. That is the Maitri Sutra, right? May all boundless beings be free from greed, hatred, and delusion. May we all be free. Find that phrase, write it down, and recite it every day. It has come through 2,600 years of recitation. That's a big deal. The privilege that we all have for being exposed to those teachings, it says, is already karma, good karma for several lifetimes. Just that you're here, just that you heard it, already you're on the good side of karma. You've gotten that exposure already. You can now make a choice. Can I live, practice that? Right? So we're going to write that and recite it. We're also, I'm going to try to go back up here. Practice this week. Thank you, Courtney. Recognizing this is a moment of suffering. Without the recognition, there is no path. I don't know what you're doing after this if you can't acknowledge that moment. Now, by the way, last week we said, can we also acknowledge the moment of joy, the moment of pleasure, the moment of happiness? And can we make an offering of that? And the answer is, of course we can. That's what we did all last week. Just gratitude and appreciative joy everywhere. Take it in, spread it around. Very good. Can we do that? Yes. Equanimity, however, requires that we also do this. That's why I'm focusing on this week, because gratitude and appreciative joy, we like it a lot. By the way, we don't usually offer it, do we? No, we don't. It's not true. We don't go for the car I drive, for this beautiful day, for the flowers in the garden. No, we don't. We just go, and go on our way, because that's the nature of the brainstem, right? We see the tiger before we smell the rose. That's its nature. And so with all the practice in gratitude, all the practice in giving, all the practice in appreciative joy, most of us did not breathe it back out to others unless you made that intention every day and then went, I'm putting this in there with that alarm. Remember, I suggested that, or with that note, or because it's easy to forget. Here's an interesting thing. Pain is a little less easy to forget. It's a little handy in that you are likely going to get slapped upside the head a little bit more. And you're going to remember that because you're going to go, ew, I don't like this. I don't want this. This doesn't feel good. This is the opportunity. You're going to catch them better. By the way, you are. We know the nature of the brainstem. So can you catch them? Pause, recognize this as a moment of suffering. My recommendation is that you say this out loud. This is a moment of suffering. This is the moment of vulnerability. This is a moment of humanness. Put your own word on it, but stay for a moment, pause, breathe it in. Feel its ache. Feel its ache. The body tells us everything we need to know. Now, what's true? It's 8:30, we're going to end in a minute. If I could not allow my own pain at my father's dying, how could I connect with Courtney and her uncle? It wouldn't be possible. Can I feel for her now? Yes. I can. I can cry for us both. And I never want you to lose that. Ever. Right? Because then we can cry for us all. And this is the path to the end of suffering. Right here. We have to get big enough, don't we? We have to get big enough to tolerate this. And the training says, begin in any moment that you can. Let me look back down and see if there's any. Siobhan says, would this be an antidote for grasping the pleasant? Yes, it is, naturally. To share it rather than going into the fear of losing it. Yes, has been working for me when I encounter more and more nights of good sleep. I was frantically grasping and trying to hold them. It will cause suffering. Yes, you got that figured out. Thus, not even enjoying the feeling of the good night's sleep. So now I share beautiful, beautiful. And it opens up and releases that grasping and holding. That's beautiful. That's right. That's right. That's perfect. All right. I'm gonna pull this up for one more minute. Let's see if I can find it. I can't, it's already gone. Please write that phrase down and then let's practice reciting it this week. Chapter 13 next week. Drawing our hands together. As long as time and space endures, and as long as there are beings who exist, may I so too remain to wash away the sorrows of the world. May we all be happy and filled with love and kindness. May we be well, have peace and ease, and be happy. Truly. Thank you all so much. I'll see you on Saturday here in the garden. Thursday, Greg, you're here, 7 a.m.
Yes, I am.
And we are collecting, I will say quickly, for St. Andrews, not this Tuesday, but the following Tuesday it will go. People are sending me money. I appreciate that. You can send it to EMC-giving, or you can send it to me somehow, or give me cash. We will be shopping for you. If for some reason you can't, I'm asking everyone to make some contribution to this. Whether you do money, you buy the items and bring them over to Carrie. If you need help figuring out which works for you, you just let us know. We're going to figure it out together. All right, all be well. Courtney, we're all with you. We're all with you. All right, everyone, be well.